I had mentioned about some shows thinking that they were going to be able to. It's like, well, we might be in the running to take over for Howard. No radio personality, no radio show is going to take over for Howard when he's done. It's just not going to happen. It'll be an empty void that they close up shop in his division and they just focus on their podcasts and their celebrity podcasts and maybe even streaming at some point if they get around to that. They're not hiring radio shows.
Yeah, there's no successor to Howard at this point.
This is 2 clips I put together. Bubba the Love Sponge. Do you know who he is?
Yes.
Radio personality, one of the shock jock radio shows from the genre that's no longer existing. He was out of Tampa, Florida. He's made lots of headlines for different things, killing a boar live on radio that wound up getting Clear Channel at the time to cancel his show and pull his syndication and all of that stuff, even though I guess legally it was clear that they had a licensed hunter, woodsman, that kind of thing, that you did it properly and humanely, but the fact that they did it live on the air was the problem. Gets another deal, comes back. He's the afternoon drive thing on Howard's 101 channel for many years, butted heads with the management there, and they wound up not re-signing him. So he had a terrestrial deal too, a smaller terrestrial deal going on at the time, so he had to lean into that. Then got in trouble for the Hulk Hogan sex tape. He got in a lot of legal trouble and almost cost stations their licenses because he was altering what they call the PPM meters. Do you know what those are?
Is that how they measure the ratings?
Yeah, PPM meters it looks almost like this. It's just almost like a USB drive that hooks on your keychain or wherever. It can detect. It's almost like the technology Shazam has, when it can tell the coding in a song to let you know what the song is. The PPM thing is it's almost like the ratings books, but it's a bit more accurate. If it's sent to somebody, they can hear any radio that's playing, and you get credit for listening to that. If you're in a store, say you work at a supermarket and you have it on your keys and they're playing some local radio station in there, it says that you listen to this radio station all the time. It's just what it does. Just like ratings books, you're not supposed to know who gets them. If somebody calls up or lets you know and say, hey, I got a ratings book, you're supposed to I don't want to know anything about it. Don't talk to me about that. It's illegal. Either he was doing it or had somebody, it was in cahoots with somebody who was doing it, wound up getting an FCC investigation, fines. The station he was on had their ratings book stripped for a while, where none of their ratings could legally be used for market research or even sales information. He's had a history of really big problems. He's been doing radio forever, but he's one of these guys who he adopted some technology. I don't think he did. I think somebody on his staff forced him into it. He's been streaming on Twitch. He does his morning show on the radio, but he's also on Twitch. And he still thinks in this mindset that, we're getting on more stations, and you'll hear in this clip here he's talking about the signals of the station like these are big impressive deals. They don't mean anything anymore. He's talking about bringing back an old staff member if he gets the deal to replace Howard. I want you to listen to this and hear how frustrating this is.
There's a couple really big situations that are headed our way. We just picked up Panama City, 50,000 watt FM.
All right, that used to mean something. A 50,000 watt FM. I'm glad he didn't say the stick, because they always talk about the antenna. The old radio guys, it's like, oh, it's got a 50,000 watt stick coming out of Jacksonville, and you're like, that just means it can broadcast it. That's the maximum amount by law that a station can broadcast, at least an FM one, right? That's as far as it can go, as powerful as it goes. So that used to be impressive. Like, oh, we're on these big stations, everything. That's great, but it doesn't mean anything anymore. Saying about the reach and the coverage doesn't mean anything anymore, because you can have these broadcasts on these big stations, but they're monitoring the live streams, they're monitoring the apps, the digital downloads, the podcast plays, all of that stuff. That means something. It's like, we can cover the whole northwest quadrant of Florida. Okay, cool, but are you going to get everybody listening on that radio station, or are they just going to be listening on their phone, if they even care at all about Bubba's show, but anybody's show in general?
I got another 50,000 watt FM that's looking at us. The documentary hits in exactly 4 weeks. That's going to open up some possibilities.
I guess he's put out his own documentary. I was looking up information. I couldn't find much on it, but I guess he has his own documentary coming out about him.
And Lummy, I will tell you this. I'm not going to get into its specifics, but Tom Bean, my agent, has started speaking with people from Sirius. You know what? I'm throwing it out there.
He could have I'm not denying that they could be talking to Sirius. It also could be that his agent sent an email
right
to some people that they have contacts over there. And they say, yeah, well, I started talks with them. Well, I just sent an email saying, hey, we'd like to talk about a possibility. And you're left on red, as the kids say.
What is everybody's mindset with regards to if I would be fortunate enough to get that situation that I bring Manson back? Or is there too much damage? I personally think there's too much damage. He said so many things.
This was an old producer of his show and kind of like a second or third mic on Bubba's show forever. The producer used to have this character called Ned that for a long time, it was almost like how Ron and Fez would do a lot of carny stuff, kayfabe stuff. Mm-hmm. Bubba's big into the wrestling world, use a lot of jargon and lingo that's super annoying as his own language. This guy, what's his name? Mike, yeah.
It's Mike Waters.
Mike Waters, thank you. I was trying to think of his last name. We did a special with him on Compound Media for his solo show and everything. Very talented guy, knows what he's doing. We know that he was the major part of why Bubba was successful, because he had this Ned character. This character would do prank phone calls that were pretty funny. They would do parody songs. This guy was the big creative force within Bubba's world, and then they had a falling out, and the guy just started talking about what a terrible person Bubba was and all the stuff behind the scenes. And now he's bringing this guy back up again. He's like, well, if we get this deal, you think we should, get the band back together and all that? Bubba does this all the time. He speaks in what ifs instead of let's wait till something's a bit more secure in the dealings before talking about any of this stuff. He brings everything there and then wonders why shit falls apart because you talked about it on the air.
And blamed, everything on me. I don't know if you would admit that I've grown tremendously post you and that I can do it without you, but you were the greatest of all time.
All right, so he's like, well, our show doesn't really need this anymore. We don't go that direction. I don't know if you'd admit that I've grown tremendously post you and I've done this without you, but do you think you might want to come back?
Yeah, that's kind of a really shitty way of doing it.
This is a very shitty way of trying to, this guy who's supposedly...
I don't need you, but you were good, and I would like you.
You were fantastic for when there, but he's like, but the show's been successful without you. We don't really need to bring you on, but do you think maybe if we do bury the hatchet, you'd want to come back? This is the shit I'm talking about when he just... Bubba's his own worst enemy from clips and things that I've read and seen and heard. And he has a habit of saying he's going in a sentimental direction and then says shit like there was no need to ever bring this up. You're saying maybe the quiet parts out loud. You're saying things that don't need to be. Yes, you're right there, Woodpit. Backhanded compliments. Yeah. It's like, I'm great. I'm fantastic. I know we'll thrive without you, but maybe we should mend fences and see about maybe coming back if this deal comes through. There's no deal. There won't ever be a deal. If they brought him back up for any reason, okay, I could kind of see that, but it won't be on a Howard channel. It would be on one of those back, the channels in the back of the dial that they throw a lot of the talk programs on that, unfortunately, either a lot of people don't know about or don't listen to.
What you do, respectfully, what you do, playing two characters, all the bits, all the songs, all the parodies, I'll give you your flowers. You're the best ever at parodies, and you're the best. You are the best ever, period.
Give you your flowers, another wrestling term.
Now, the show doesn't need that to continue on, doesn't need that to be successful,
Why?
Again, yeah.
Why say this about the guy?
You're the best. There's no one that's going to beat you. Well, we could do without you.
Yeah. Either Bubba's...
There's no reason for that second part.
Either he has no idea how to be empathetic or compassionate or even just reasonable to talk to anybody.
Right.
Or he's one of these guys that's afraid of silence. You can't let something sit there.
That's possible.
Nobody's saying anything right now. I got to fill it up. It's like, no, you don't. Take a lesson from the great Ron Bennington, king of the long pause. Perfected it. He'll just sit there. There's be times where he's like, I don't know, Fez. 10 seconds goes by. Jamie, you're on with Ron and Fez. What can we do for you? It's several beats hit before Ron said something again. And you know what? It worked on his show. Somehow he made the work. The less that was said sometimes was saying more than if they kept going on a certain subject, a certain comment, a certain train of thought, a topic, whatever.
Yeah. No, there was volumes in the silence.
Yeah.
Now, the show doesn't need that to continue on, doesn't need that to be successful, doesn't need that to gain affiliates, and doesn't need that to potentially, replace Howard. But you...
Again, to potentially replace Howard. You're not replacing Howard.
Well, and this is the first time he's mentioned that specifically. Like he's saying, like, well, you might be talking to Sirius.
Yeah.
But in what capacity? And now he's basically saying, if Howard goes, I'm going to be that filler.
Right.
I'm going to be the new replacement.
Right. So
he knows he probably can't do it on his own.
And it's
But
not
he also
like
doesn't want to give the guy that much credit.
it's not like anybody wouldn't pick up Bubba. Look, Bubba's got a rap sheet and a trail behind him that any other company would look at him and go, we're not risking anything with this guy.
Right.
He's done too much for too long that it doesn't seem trustable or whatever. So I'm not denying that there couldn't be something for Sirius and him down the line, but it would be in a small capacity and it would be on a back of the room channel that no one's really paying attention to.
I was going to say, he ain't getting his own channel.
Him saying there, it's that Carney thing. It's like, we might be replacing Howard, but you know who does this? And we never talk about him. Aaron from Steel Toe. Mm-hmm. When he was, I don't ever really talk about the guy, but when he was with, doing some specials for Compound, and yes, that was my doing. He would talk about, he was talking to this radio company. He would ask me stuff about contracts and negotiations and what should I be looking for? What should I present to them? And I talked to them. I said, well, send me what information you can and I'll work with you, because I've been through contracts. I've been through all of these things at big levels. I know what to look for.
Right.
And then it never happened. I'm like, well, if you want me to talk to the guy, give me his email. I'll reach out to him. Never happened. All of this stuff was like, yeah, we're talking with these. And then it got to the point where it's like he wasn't listening to anything I said. Anything I asked, he asked me about, how do I handle this? I would tell him. Next day on his stream, he would go and say the exact opposite. Or everything that I told him, it's like, don't bring these things up. And he did it. And that's why we stopped doing the specials. I'm like, he just doesn't listen. I mean, there's a lot more to it that I don't want to get into. But anyway, point being that he would always say, it's like, we're talking to these companies, whatever. Bubba's doing the same thing. I understand you got to boast and sell yourself because nobody else is going to do it. I get that. But you don't say, we're looking, we might be, up for replacing Howard. Nobody believes that.
Right.
Nobody buys that.
Well, that's the thing. Like, and don't put it out there publicly. There have been many conversations, you and I, outside of doing this live, where we've talked about the future, what we can do, what's going on,
right?
Meetings that are happening or not happening. It doesn't get brought here because until we know that that's a thing,
right?
Why bring it up? And it's kind of just ridiculous.
Again, I'll state that, look, I understand you got to promote yourself. You got to put yourself on top because nobody else is going to. I fully get it.
But in a good way, though.
I understand why he's doing some of these things. But that's not the right direction to go. Say, we might be replacing Howard. Nobody believes that.
No.
Nobody believes that. And I'll tell you why nobody believes that, all right? Because I also know how people in the company feel about him. There were people that liked him. There were people that put up with him because he worked for Howard. Bubba is, from what I understand, I don't know the guy, but from what I understand from other people's experiences and stories and hearsay, can be generous to a fault if he likes you. He gave the president of the company, it was in a very, very expensive shadow box. Mm-hmm. With crushed red velvet backing of the shadow box. He had a custom championship belt made for the president of the company.
Wow.
That when his deal was let go or fired, or I don't remember the situation of why he was gone, within days, I saw a small dumpster outside of the president's office.
I can understand this.
And he was throwing some of the stuff out from his office or the meeting rooms or whatever. And one of these things was sticking out was this big, awkward shadow box. And I looked at it and I went, that looks like a wrestling belt. And I'm like, what wrestling belt are they throwing out? So I walked over there and I looked and I saw what it was. I went, oh. So I asked around proper channels. I asked the assistant who I guess cleared it with him. I said, hey, they're throwing this out. Can I take this if you're just going to throw it out? And it was under the understanding that it wasn't to be displayed in our office. I could take it home, but that was it. And I went, okay, cool. So I took it home. And here's the thing. I would have kept it in the shadow box, but one, the thing was gigantic. It was a waste of space. But two, it was already cracked because he threw the thing into the dumpster and the glass was broken.
He's like, with a force of 1,000 suns.
Yeah.
I just chucked it across the room.
So, yeah, I removed it from the shadow box and I kept the belt.
Good.
Now, it's not aging very well because you'd think like, oh, these replica belts are expensive. They make a lot of money. But I guess part of the chrome thing on here started to fade because I didn't realize that it was peeling off on part of the guy's name.
Oh, no.
But Bubba, I just want to show you that, you think you're dealing with Sirius and everything, and that they gave zero shits about you because everything you gave them. I know Bubba was big into NASCAR and wrestling and all things. There was, you know how they take the NASCAR tires and they turn them into like coffee tables?
Mm-hmm.
Something like that. There were those things being thrown away, and some of them were signed by NASCAR drivers. And I don't know who's famous and who isn't really. But if you're a fan of NASCAR, I can imagine these would be like, oh my God, I can't believe it. And the guy was throwing it out. And apparently these were all gifts from Bubba. But I just want to show you something, man. Look, if you're dealing with Sirius, they threw your shit out. Here, I'll show it to you. Scott Greenstein, president of SiriusXM, he gave this to him. Now, from what I understood, when it was in the shadow box, it sat in like the corner of an office, wasn't even displayed or hung up or anything. So when the deal was done, he threw it into the dumpster. Now, the side parts of the belt, look at that.
Oh, wow.
So these are the companies that Scott used to work at. Viacom, Miramax. For a while, Greenstein was known as the third Weinstein brother, unofficially. So yeah, you can see right there. Look, Miramax Films, Viacom, and then the other stuff that he worked on right here. Look, so you got USA Films, which was NBC at the time.
And apparently at
right
the
there.
Bottom there, he was part of the Black Panthers.
Oh, that's the Howard fist that he stole from the Black Panthers. Like the Sirius logo and everything. So he gave this to the president of the company, manager of talent, Scott G, world champion, or whatever this thing is there.
That was in a box, so that is already huge.
The guy didn't want it. He threw it out the second your deal was done. We were still there. So I went and I asked for it, and they're like, yeah, take it. I just couldn't display it in the office. So there it is.
Just chucked out.
That thing's heavy.
Yeah, that looks cumbersome.
Big Red Tower saying that belt is awesome. Saving even if it's falling apart. Yeah, I did. I've saved it for all these years. He's been off the station. He's been off that at least well over a decade, I think, since leaving SiriusXM. I mean, that's just Bubba being Bubba, I guess. Another person that thinks he's going to get Howard's job, or at least get back on Howard's show, is the deadbeat drunk Stuttering John, who we've been quietly following for the longest time. The Uncle Rico Show, who are these podcasts. Those programs do a great job documenting stuff on John. You should go watch those. And if you're like, Stuttering John, who gives a shit about Stuttering John? One, yes, you're right. But two, like, was anything going on with him? Go back and look. There's been, like, that Uncle Rico Show exists because John was harassing Shuley, and then Shuley went, okay, motherfucker, game on. And now they're like 3 years strong and profitable. Anyway, so the Howard stuff came around. Somebody posted something about, there's this troll account that constantly makes John believe everything that they're doing is legit, and John falls for it all the time. Look at this. So the original post says, if the king of all media leaves, many think former sidekick and Tonight Show announcer Stuttering John could be the perfect replacement. He responded and he'd go, I'd do this, and tagged SiriusXM. No. Never going to happen. Now he could probably say, I was joking or whatever. No, you're not. You're that retarded that you are honestly putting there. And he goes, you never know. There could be a chance they would see this. Nobody looks at corporate accounts. Number one, people who schedule shit to put on corporate accounts never look at the feedback. So you're tagging a company that will never notice or respond to any of this. If you tag somebody specifically, you have a better chance of getting some sort of reaction than tagging a company. But Dum Dum here thinks like this would be an opportunity. Now, this leads up to he did a broadcast on his YouTube channel. I trimmed this up. I did the old jump cut edit because there are long pauses that he's just so drunk or dumb that he doesn't know what he's saying. That was annoying me, so I trimmed it up to make it go a little faster. He thinks that there's a possibility that he could be invited back on Howard for the big swan song for the Howard Stern show. Listen to this.
Let me ask you guys a question. Wouldn't it be nice for him, for his fans, to have maybe me back for
Howard? Wouldn't it be nice for Howard and his fans to have me back on? No one's thinking this.
No
one's thinking. Howard's not even thinking this. Howard scrubbed him from all best of stuff like a long time, a decade ago, when John was dumb enough to try to file a lawsuit, and he was suing SiriusXM because he was trying to claim that they were making money off his public persona, his celebrity, by playing his clips and all this other shit. The case got thrown out of court with prejudice. Do you know what that means?
I just, if I'm remembering correctly, is it when like the court realizes like this is either a frivolous lawsuit or
such a waste of time?
Yeah, it's just a waste of the court's time.
That you can't come back and try this again.
Right.
So they're like, with prejudice, like, you can never file this lawsuit again because it is such a waste of time. And once you do that, you think the company's going to ever do anything for him? No. Do you think Howard's ever going to give a shit for him? No. Howard hasn't given a shit about him in the longest time.
Well, and see here, look at this. Woodpit says if Howard was leaving, he might, as a gesture of pity. Do you think really he cares? No, he doesn't care that much.
There'd be other people he might bring back if he is leaving and he's going to do the big ramp up finale thing. There might be some I think he's in somewhat good standings with Jackie. He might bring Jackie back. He might bring Billy West back because he never had a problem with Billy West. If Billy came back to say goodbye. There might be old guests that he hasn't had on him forever. But I mean, we won't get Gilbert back because Gilbert has long passed.
I would rather dig up the corpse of Gilbert Godfrey than get Stuttering John back on that show.
I could even, it seems improbable, but it's not impossible. If Howard's on his way out, meaning he's leaving on his own thing, he could do a pop-up with Artie. I don't think that would happen, but he could. Everybody but John.
But see, you're talking about audience wanting these things to happen. I don't see an audience sitting here going, this will only work if we get Stuttering John back.
Right.
There is a laundry list of people that you would rather see over him.
Mm-hmm. Everybody. The big get,
everybody.
The big get would have been Artie and Gilbert, but Gilbert's not around anymore, so Artie would be the end-all, be-all surprise to get back on Howard's show.
Yeah.
Anything could be possible. Who knows? John is beyond dead. John never existed in the history of the show as far as the on-air presence of the show goes. Here's some more of it.
Week. Jackie back for a week. Artie back for a week.
He wants his own week.
He wants a whole week? What is he, a teenage girl celebrating a birthday?
Artie would be back for a day. Jackie would be back for a day or a segment or something. There was no way John would even be back for a segment. Not even for a pre-recorded bit or even an ID. Howard, thank you so much for everything over the years. You wouldn't even get that privilege.
Right.
To be part of the show.
Billy back for a week. Grillo back for a week. The E-guys getting...
You hear him burping and drinking?
I was going to say, this guy sounds like he's got heartburn right now. He's just like,
it's not heartburn. He's a lush.
DePace, Goodstein, Wilson. I mean, wouldn't that be nice for the fans to just, check in on them and, and hear and bust? Well, of course, I'd be essentially there to bust the buoy.
He thinks he's going to come back like he'd be welcome, and he'd sit there, and we'll rag on Gary. Nobody rags on Gary the way John used to rag on Gary in 20-something years. Gary still gets shit from Howard, but in different ways now. It's not like, Gary was in the back eating shrimp, and no one fucking cares about that anymore.
All right.
Gary has progressed into so many other monumental disasters on that show, like his pitch for the opening pitch for the Mets.
Right.
Which lives in, that's something, you get onto him. There's stuff where Gary's fallen asleep in the office or his salads or something was stinking up the plate. There's all these other things that Gary's not the same guy that he was 30 years ago, 20 years ago with John, but John is still the same guy 20 or 30 years ago when they were all there together. He's like, I'll be there to bust the buoy. No one would entertain this.
But I mean, it would be a nice thing. And make no mistake about it, I don't dislike Gary. I don't really dislike
He shits on Gary all the time.
Anybody. I don't even dislike Fred. I don't really have any.
Never mentions Fred. Nobody really mentions Fred. I will point out the several times I've talked to Fred and I've actually asked him things about how he did his job with the sound effects, the Days of Carts and everything like that.
Mm-hmm.
very nice man. And the fact that you take an interest in the technical stuff, he was glad to tell me. Like how his, like he had his own system. He never explained his system, but he would tell me about the rack unit. Cause I said, we had that studio after you and you had these cabinets, and he told me what was in those cabinets. He told me how the rack systems were. And like, these are questions fans aren't asking. This is somebody in the radio that was asking. And he answered anything I could, anything he could when I talked to him. Fred was always a nice person to me. I've never had a bad thing ever to say about Fred.
Animosity for any of them. I mean, we were in the trenches together, and we built something beautiful. And when I say we, I know you do. Oh, well, you didn't know. Well, I was a part of that show, and I was there when Howard was only on New York and Philly. And while there, we ended up adding about 70 other markets. So, and I believe it's because of that core group, essentially why we, became so successful.
No, he's sitting there as like, I helped make the show what it was. Okay. Well, the content on air, you definitely delivered for content on the air. But as we found out over time, and definitely through the deep dives of Uncle Rico and WATP, John didn't write shit. And other people from the show that are either currently with the show or are not on the show have all said John didn't do anything. John didn't know how to use the software. John wasn't writing anything. He was asleep in the office, or he had other... I used to hear shit when I would listen growing up in New York. I used to hear... There was a time, it was multiple times, but one time in particular, they had John in, and Howard's yelling at John for borrowing money to pay for lunch, right? Mm-hmm. And then, like, he was borrowing money, not from just like employees, but I guess like guys like Jason and Will, who are executive producers of his show and higher ups now. But back then, were either like interns or they were just, assistants. They weren't making much money. And John's borrowing money off of these people, off of interns. And then found out that John was sending interns with his ATM card and code to go to find an ATM to get money out of his bank account for him. Because he wasn't allowed to leave. And this was a regular occurrence. And even then, I was like, who the fuck gives out your ATM card and your PIN?
Right.
And you're going to trust these people? Well, they'll bring me the receipt. Yeah, but they could also steal a couple $100 and say, oh, I lost the receipt or whatever. And then you don't find out for days because you're too dumb to look. But I mean, it was one thing. We used to have, we'd have like a corporate credit card. So that if we had to send somebody down, whether it be the staff or interns or whatever, to get coffee or breakfast orders for Opant and Jim, or for any of the guests that were coming in. Sometimes we'd have guests come in the morning, and they required something. So we would send down that. We had a credit card. Mm-hmm. At least with a credit card, you could cancel the card and get your money back. With an ATM, if somebody takes out the money, you're fucked. Like, it just the level of stupidity on that guy has been mind-boggling, and it's been going on for 30, 40 years that he's been in any form of public eye for all of this stuff. So he thinks that he deserves to come back for, one last hoorah. Yeah, with Howard's show and what have you. That will never happen.
It's Eric Nagel. Follow the show on all social medias at It's Eric Nagel for ways to watch or listen to the show, both live and on demand. Go to itsericnagel.com.